Welcome delegates to Track 2, Pedagogy and Assessment and Evaluation. Let us welcome the first presenter, George Chung, with his final year project titled UPSI TESOL Pre-Service Teachers' Preferences of Teaching Method in Teaching English During Teaching Practice.
Okay, so greetings and good day to everyone. My name is George Chong, and today I am going to present my FYP. And the title for my FYP is UPSI TESOL Pre-Service Teachers Preferences of Teaching Method in Teaching English During Teaching Practice. So the purpose of this study is to take the first step to look at what teaching methods that the pre-service teachers have used during their teaching practice and why do they use it. Okay, so the research problem that I found in my research is that the teachers has problem in choosing and using appropriate teaching methods during their teaching or lessons, especially pre-service teachers who are lacking of teaching experience. So there are two research objectives for this research, which are to identify UPSI TESOL pre-service teachers' preferences of teaching method in teaching English during their teaching practice and to know their reasons for their preferences. So there are also two research questions for this research, which are what are UPSI TESOL pre-service teachers' preferences of teaching method in teaching English during their teaching practice and what are their reasons for their preferences. Okay, so moving on to literature review, I learned that there are tons of teaching method and each teaching method has their own purposes, and teaching practice is one of the best ways for teachers to try out the art of teaching before getting into the real world of teaching. Therefore, teachers can try out the various teaching methods during their practice. So for this research, I've used qualitative research strategy to obtain my data and thematic analysis to analyze the data obtained. Okay, so there are two instruments that I have used to obtain the data, which are open-ended questionnaire and semi-structured interview. So 50 respondents from UPSI TESOL Semester 7 students were chosen for the questionnaire to answer the questionnaire, and only 12 out of the 50 respondents were chosen for the interview sessions through Google Meet. Okay, so for my findings, after the analyzing of data obtained, I found that 56% or 28 respondents preferred using teacher-centered teaching method, while the remaining 44% or 22 respondents preferred student-centered teaching method. So the reasons given by the teachers are that for teacher-centered teaching method, they use it because the students are not active and it is easier to conduct online. Students' proficiency is below average, suitable for teachers to lead the class, mentor teachers' advice, and also poor internet connection. However, the reasons for the student-centered are to get students to engage. It provides opportunity for students to take control of their learning, and it is easier to conduct online. It allows a two-way interaction between teachers and students. It helps measure the students' understanding. It helps the students to develop their thinking skills and to put the students at the first place. Okay, so that is for the findings. Okay, so as a conclusion, we can see that the pre-service teachers are still lacking of knowledge, as there were only two types of teaching methods that we use, which are teacher-centered and also student-centered teaching method. However, we can see that the teachers are actually trying their best, as they have their own valid reasons for their preferences, and they are actually still experimenting and applying their knowledge from their studies in their teaching practice. So that is all for my presentation. So thank you for listening.
Next presenter, Nabiha Binti Idris, with her final year project titled The Use of Instruction Giving Skills in the Online ASL Classroom.
Assalamualaikum and a very good day I bid to everyone who is watching today. My name is Nabiha Binti Idris and I would like to talk about my research, which is the use of instruction giving skills in online ASL classroom. So without further ado, let us go to the introduction part. So for problem statement, the problem that I actually identified during my lesson is that the students were having problem completing online tasks, in which tasks using online platforms. Okay, so I noticed how they were having problem in handling the platform itself. So I believe that the instruction plays a huge role here. Okay, which is why I am here to identify, to investigate the use of instruction giving skills during my class. For this research, the objective is to identify different skills of instruction giving in use in the classroom. Okay, and then the next one, the second objective is to identify the impacts of using the instruction giving skills. Okay, for each. So same goes to research question, which is what is the instruction giving skills used in the classroom, and also what are the impacts of using different instruction giving skills. Okay, so that is it for introduction. Now let us move on to the next part. Alright, so the second part of this presentation is about literature review. So literature review helps me in identifying the area that I should focus on. So for this research, I focus on the types of instruction giving skills and also the online class context. Okay, so these are the types of instruction giving skills that I actually got from the articles. Okay, and then for online class, I decided to do some research on online class because I think that I should know the students' context or maybe other contexts of online class. Yeah, other than the ones that I actually know. So that is it for literature review. Okay, now moving on to methodology. The data collection method that I use for this research is self-observation, which is it will lead to qualitative data. Alright, so the reason why I use self-observation in this research is because this research focuses on the researcher's experience only. So all I need to do is to self-observe myself. And then for the data collection instrument, I use video recording, students' feedback, and also reflective entry. Alright, now that we have known the methodology, let us move on to results and findings. So for data collection, I actually collected data from each stage. Okay, so I collected data by using these two things. So the checklist is for me to identify which instruction giving skills is used in the class during the lesson. And yeah, if it is present, if it is used in the class, I will give it a tick. And if it is not present, I will give it a cross. So for observation table, it actually is the continuation of the checklist. It is used to record what happened during the class when I use the instruction giving skills. Based on the data that I have collected, I can conclude that the impacts differ for each of the instruction giving skills listed there. For example, like it could lead to positive impacts and it could also lead to negative impacts as well. Okay, based on the students' feedback. So for example, demonstration will give positive feedback in which the students will have the idea on how to answer the question. But then for the use of long sentences, it could lead to like misunderstanding among the students. Okay, so I think that is all for this presentation. To conclude this presentation, I would say that this research requires future researchers in which it should be more focused. Okay, because for this research, it only talks about the instruction giving skills and also the impacts for each of them. But then future researchers, I guess it should be focused in which it should decide which one is best used in online classroom. Okay, so for that being said, that is it for my presentation. Thank you so much everyone for listening.
Next presenter, Natasha Binti Datu Rizwan with her final year project titled Implementation of Online Interactive Activities to Increase Students' Engagement During Online Learning.
Assalamualaikum and good day to everyone. My name is Natasha Binti Datu Rizwan, and today I'm going to present my final year project titled Implementation of Online Interactive Activities to Increase Students' Engagement During Online Learning. First, let's look at the problem statement. Home-based teaching and learning has become the new learning system after the pandemic outbreak. However, many students were unable to stay focused in class due to the learning environment and unsuitable teaching approach. Therefore, this research intends to study how the integration of technological interactive activities can enhance students' participation in class. The purpose of this study is to determine how interactive activities are able to increase students' participation during online learning and to identify the students' views of the use of interactive activities during online learning. According to Picciano 2017, the connectivism theory has evolved with the integration of technology and networking, and the students need to experience the flow of the evolving information in the networking to create the knowledge. Past research from McKinsey 2019 also showed that implementation of online interactive activities with unlimited attempts motivate the learners to participate and get the correct answer. So here, we can see how technology in online learning has significant impact to the students in class. The research design is action research based on Kurt Lewin's model. The model is a continuous cycle that starts with plan, act, observe, and reflect. In this research, the researcher will observe two cycles. The first cycle involved limited use of interactive activities, and the second cycle involved the maximum use of interactive activities. The total sample of this research are 10 students with mixed gender from Form 1A that participated as students during the teaching practice. For the instruments, the researcher collected the data using video recordings and questionnaire. 2 lessons were conducted and recorded in Google Meet. The first video recording implemented limited interactive activities, and the second video have maximum interactive activities implemented. A questionnaire that contains 15 items with Likert scale answer ranged from 1 to 5 were administered to the students and was analyzed using the SPSS software. So the first finding analyzed based on the video recordings to answer the first research question. The results showed that the implementation of online interactive activities has a positive impact to increase students' participation. So a significant difference based on the students' response can be seen after the implementation of online interactive activities. The students speak more and respond better in the class. For the second findings were analyzed based on the questionnaire that have been analyzed using SPSS software to answer the second research question. The result of the descriptive analysis showed that the students have moderately positive views toward the implementation of online interactive activities with the mean of 3.75. So the item with the highest mean showed that most of the students agree that interactive activities help to improve their language skill, and item with the lowest mean showed that students need guidance to understand how to do the interactive activities. So to conclude, the implementation of online interactive activities has a significant impact to increase the students' engagement during class. However, some external factors may affect the students' participation in class, such as slow network connection, uncomfortable environment, and more. Therefore, further research should be conducted, especially to study the challenges faced by students when implementing online interactive activities in the class. So that is all from me. Thank you.
Next presenter, Amiryana, Rauda, Binti, Faisal Asmi, with her final year project titled Teachers Questioning Strategies to Elicit Students' Verbal Responses in Virtual Lesson.
Assalamualaikum and good day everyone. My name is Amiryana, Rauda, Binti, Faisal Asmi. My metric number is T2018108257, and today I will be presenting my final year project entitled Teachers Questioning Strategies to Elicit Students' Verbal Responses in Virtual Lesson. The problem statement of this study was due to the teacher's questioning strategies used in the lesson, which resulted in the lack of students' verbal responses. Whenever the students were asked questions, they would take their time to answer or be unresponsive at all. At some point, when the students were given time, they would exceed the allocated time for that specific stage. The teacher also realized that her way of questioning the students was the cause for students' lack of verbal responses. Her words got mixed up while asking the questions, which made the students even more confused. There are two research objectives of this study: to find out types of questioning strategies used by the teacher to gain students' verbal responses, and to identify issues that cause the students' lack of verbal responses in visual lessons. 10 goals for research questions, which are: what are the types of questioning strategies used by the teacher to gain students' verbal responses in visual lessons, and what are the patterns of questioning strategies used by the teacher that cause the students' lack of verbal responses in visual lessons. Moving on to the literature review, according to the articles, I can conclude that questioning techniques is one of important tools to extend students' learning, which can help teachers to develop their own strategies to enhance students' work and thinking. Next, there are a few types of questioning strategies that are convergent, divergent, evaluative, reflective, probing, and factual questioning strategies. As much as it is important for teachers to use different methods of questioning, teachers should also acquire the knowledge of practicing the correct ways of asking a question. Next, for methodology, a qualitative method was used to carry out the research. Classroom observations and teachers' field notes were the main sources of data for this research. As for the participants, a pre-service teacher was involved as well as her students. Lastly, the research setting was an online classroom setting. For research instruments, this research was carried out using two research instruments: classroom observation of the video recordings, which then the video will be transcribed. The video transcriptions will be analyzed for more accurate data, and also teachers' field notes. Moving on to the findings, for research question 1, based on the two classroom observations made, the findings showed that the teacher used 4 different questioning strategies that were rephrasing, repetition, conversion, and effective. However, she tended to mostly use 2 questioning strategies that were rephrasing and repetition questioning strategies. These 2 strategies had helped her to obtain students' verbal responses, as by rephrasing and repeating the questions had enabled the students to understand the questions that were being asked. These are some extracts to show how she used the 2 strategies. Next, for research question 2, it showed that the teacher was having issues with her way of asking her questions, and being nervous had affected her way of delivering a speech. The teacher had mentioned in one of her field notes, the silence after she asked a question made her nervous and overthink her teaching techniques. In a way, it had also affected her speech, where she eventually mixed up her words, making it hard for her students to understand. To conclude my study, questioning strategies are very important to be implemented in a classroom, as it can enhance the classroom interaction. As much as questioning strategies are important, it is also important for teachers to be aware of the correct techniques of questioning by following the guidelines that had been prepared. By practicing these guidelines, a teacher can easily acquire the skill and can implement them in the classroom. With these changes, it will surely help them to deliver a smooth teaching and learning process. That is for my presentation, and thank you for listening.
Next presenter, Nurul Anis Aliya Binti Che Abdullah, with her final year project titled The Use of Active Learning Methods in Increasing Students' Participation in ESL Classroom.
Greetings everyone, my name is Nurul Anis Aliya Binti Abdullah, and today I'll be presenting my final year project entitled The Use of Active Learning Methods in Increasing Students' Participation in ESL Classroom. So the purpose of this study is to determine if there is any significant changes of students' participation when using active learning methods. And one of the common issues that occur in English and ESL classroom would be the students' participation in the lesson. Right, so based on the teaching practice, researcher noticed that most of the students did not participate in classroom activity and would rather stay passive. And this study was implemented to identify the cause of the students' lack of participation in ESL classroom and to know whether if there is an increase in students' participation in ESL classroom when active learning methods are implemented. And the research questions posed in this research are: what are the causes of the students' lack of participation in ESL classroom, and also how active learning methods help in increasing the students' participation in ESL classroom. Right, so in this study, the literature review consists of three important elements. The first element is participation, and the next one is reasons for students' lack of participation in classroom activities, and the last one is active learning. Right, so the study sample involved 20 students at the age of 13 years old from the same class with 11 males and 9 females. The selection of the participants is based on the class that the researcher had taught during the practicum teaching, and the approach of this research was a mixed method research where the researcher used both quantitative and qualitative approaches to identify the reasons for the students' lack of participation in ESL classroom, as well as to see whether if there is any increment of participation after the active learning method was implemented. Right, so for the research instrument, online questionnaires and observation were employed as the data gathering tools. So the online questionnaires were created using Google Forms and was used to identify the reason for the students' lack of participation in ESL classroom. And the researcher used closed-ended question for the students to choose from scale 1, which is strongly agree, to scale 8, strongly disagree. And next is the classroom observation, where this method was carried out by the researcher in an English lesson class during the teaching practicum, where the researcher observed the students' behavior before and after the implementation of the active learning methods. And for the findings, the data gathered through questionnaire revealed that the students' participation in ESL classroom was lacking for various reasons. And respondents responded that they agree on why they did not participate in ESL classroom were due to a few reasons stated in online questionnaires. And also, the finding from the classroom observation, the researcher had witnessed that the active learning methods had helped the students to be more active in the class, which means that there is an increase of the students' participation in ESL classroom after the implementation of active learning methods. And also, in conclusion, students' participation is one of the most elements in the learning and teaching process in the classroom, as it helps the student learn from each other as well as increase their comprehension through cooperation. And the methods could be seen to be a success as the students began to show a little bit of interest after it was implemented. And also, it is safe to say that the reasons for the students to not participate in the class activity were minimized, and the results does not only promote the students' participation but also improve the quality of the learning and teaching process. Hence, it can be said that using active learning methods can bring benefits to both teachers and also the students. That's all from me. Thank you.
Next presenter, Chiu Miung, with her final year project titled The Use of Cue Cards to Guide Passive Students During Speaking Activities.
My name is Chiu Miung, and I'm going to present the use of cue card to guide passive students during speaking activities. I'm supervised by Dr. Noelia Suhaimi Binti Abdullah. As for the introductions, the research problems in this study is that when during my time in teaching practice once, some of the students are often passive and inert during speaking activities. In this research, the cue card refers to cue card that includes hints or clues to guide the students during speaking activities. There are two research objectives, which is to identify if cue card encourage student participations during speaking activities and to investigate how does QCAT encourage student participation during speaking activities. There are also two research questions that study aims to answer, which is, does QCAT encourage student participation during speaking activity, and how does it helps to encourage student participation during speaking activities? For the literature review, there are three parts: passive student and the reasons. According to the researcher Krishna and Shafi, the researcher identified that there are some psychological factors that preventing students from speaking in the class is lack of motivation, shyness, and fear of making mistakes. Concept of cue card. According to Hammer, cue cards are cards with phrases and picture on them. They are used in pair or group words to motivate student response. Advantages of using cue card. According to the Mushid and Mufarida, cue card make it easier for students to speak out in the form of words and phrases or even sentence. The research design in this study is classroom action research, which includes quantitative and qualitative methods. So for the data collection instruments, Google Form questionnaires are distributed to the students after the implementation of cue cards during speaking activities. So this purpose is to collect data or feedback from the students. And classroom observation checklist and verbatim transcription also applied in this study to collecting the data in this research. So the samples of this classroom action research is Form 4B consists of 24 students from SMK Sarike, Sarawak, and the level of proficiency is intermediate level. So for the findings, the student feeling toward using cue card during a speaking activity are quite engaging throughout the classes, and they feel more comfortable and confident in speaking by utilizing cue cards during speaking activities. Based on the data, majority or more than half of the students would like to participate in speaking activity with the use of cue cards This means that the student participations improve by the implementation of cue card during speaking activities. Cue card encourage student participations by encouraging them, motivate them to speak more, as it guides them when they are run out of ideas and guide them to use appropriate vocabulary in English. Furthermore, cue card also take off the pressure of making mistake, as it provides hints and clues or as a prompt for the student. In conclusions, the application of cue card methods was effective and significant in improving the student participations. Furthermore, the limitation of this action research is the small sample size, which may lead to inaccuracy of the result. Thank you for listening.
Next presenter, Noelia Suhaimi Binti Alwi, with her final year project titled A Study on Wait Time in ESL Classroom.
Hi and Assalamualaikum. My name is Noelia Suhaimi Binti Alwi. I am under the supervision of Dr. Naraini Binti Zulkifli. My research title is about a study on wait time in ESL classroom. Due to the pandemic that has slammed this whole world, everything needs to be resorted online, and as well as the educational field, which the teaching and learning process needs to take place using an online platform such as Google Meet, Webex, Zoom. Usually the lesson period take around 40 minutes to 80 minutes per subject during the face-to-face classroom. But since everything needs to be resorted online, The class time has been reduced into a minimum of 30 minutes. Thus, this issue has resulted into teachers' limited wait time practice, which can lead to a poor classroom interaction among the students and the teacher in an online classroom. So, the purpose of this study is to identify the wait time allotted by the teacher after each question posed and how the students respond to each question. And students' responses may vary depending on the wait time given by the teacher and their level of proficiency in using the English language in the classroom. In my study, I applied 3 research questions, which the first one is on the what is the length of teacher-assigned wait time between the asked questions and the learner's responses. The second one is about how do wait times affect students' participation in the classroom. The last research question focuses on the students' proficiency level. How do the responses of the students change depending on the questions and the wait time given by the teacher? The research design for this study is I utilize the action research cycle, which consists of act, observe, reflect, and plan. And the participants for this study consists of 25 Form 2 students in an urban school located in Kota Baru, Kelantan. There are 3 research instruments being utilized in the study. The first one is the video transcription, which I took it from the video recording of my teaching practicum 1. And the second instrument I use is the checklist, which I adapted an IRF cycle and implemented into my video transcription to see the interval time between the teacher and the students' responses in the classroom. And the last instrument is my own reflective entry of the lesson that I have conducted with the students in the classroom. There are 2 major findings found from the study. The first one, it answered the second research question, which is about how do wait times affect the students' participation in the classroom. Due to the limited lesson time, which has been reduced into a minimum of 30 minutes, the teacher could not give more wait time to the student to respond to her question, which has led the students to be confused of what they have learned in the class. And the second finding answered the third research question, which has led into a result of teacher and students discuss change when the average wait time exceeded a range of values of 3 seconds in the classroom. This study would be more insightful if the researcher can do a comparison of wait time taken in a face-to-face classroom and in an online classroom to see how the interval of wait time change can affect the students' responses as well as the interaction in the classroom. With that being said, that is all information of my research study, and thank you for listening.
Next presenter, Evelyn Natasha Anak Johnny, with her final year project titled Read Aloud Technique in Enhancing ESL Students' Pronunciation.
Hi everyone, my name is Evelyn Natasha Anak Johnny and I will be presenting my research report. So the title of my research is Read Aloud Technique in Enhancing ESL Students' Pronunciation. Moving on to the problem statement of this study. Students tend to read in a low voice or whispering when they experience difficulties to pronounce some words, which results to unclear pronunciation. The aim of this research is to study the effect of read aloud technique in improving pronunciation. Besides, this research is conducted to investigate the learner's views regarding the reading aloud task for the learning of pronunciation. There are 2 research questions in this study. The research questions are: how does the use of read aloud technique help to improve pronunciation? And what are the students' views regarding the reading aloud task for the learning of pronunciation? Pratama in 2019 claimed that reading aloud has a significant influence towards students' achievement in pronunciation. Based on the study conducted by Pratama, the average scores of the students who are taught using reading aloud method has a higher mean scores during post-test as compared to the students who are not receiving the same treatment. Thus, Pratama concluded that reading aloud is a decent method to motivate students to learn English, specifically pronunciation in this context. Next, the relevant study that is related to this research is written by Dina Aryani, Rismaya Marbun, and Dwi Rianti. The activities were carried out in 3 cycles. In the first cycle, students pronounced the words independently. Meanwhile, in cycle 2, the teacher read aloud the text with the correct pronunciation, and the students will follow afterwards. Lastly, in cycle 3, the students will read the text on their own again. So, based on their findings, the researchers found that students' average scores improved from cycle 1 to cycle 3. Therefore, the researchers concluded that reading aloud technique has improved the students' pronunciation. The research design for this study is action research. And then as for participants, they are a class of Form 4 students which consisted of 10 students. The instruments used in these studies are pre-test and post-test, as well as the questionnaires. Okay, the findings of this research shows that reading aloud technique does have a positive effect in enhancing students' pronunciation. Okay, the figure shown on the slide is comparing the students' scores during pre-test and post-test. So, based on the bar chart, there is a significant change of the scores. It is clearly seen that the post-test has a better result than pre-test. The average score during pre-test was 5.4, meanwhile average score for post-test was 9.6. Also, based on the bar chart, the students had improved a lot during the post-test, with 7 of them getting the perfect scores, meanwhile the lowest mark was 8. As to compare to the pre-test, the highest score was 7 and the lowest score was 2. Not only that, each student successfully improved their pronunciation during the post-test as all of their scores improved. Another finding in this study is that most of the participants find read aloud has helped them to boost their confidence and self-assurance to speak up in English classroom. To conclude this study, reading aloud is indeed a good technique that can be used by the teachers to help in enhancing students' pronunciation. I think that is all from me. Thank you for listening.
Next presenter, Fazlya Tahir Binti Khairi, with her final year project titled The Use of Online Group Activities to Promote Students' Active Participation in an ESL Classroom.
Good day, IB to everyone. My name is Fazlya Tahir Binti Khairi, and my supervisor is Dr. Mazdin Binti Mohammed. The title for this research is The Use of Online Group Activities to Promote Active Participation in an ESL Classroom. The problem statement for this research is, first, online classes made students learn individually, which makes learning environment becomes passive. And same learning methods make students demotivated to join online classes. The research objectives for this paper is, first, to identify the use of group activities in an online classroom. Second is to examine the reasons of assigning group activities in an online classroom. For the research questions, what are the functions of online group activities? And then second, what are the reasons of assigning online group activities? The participations for this research were from Form 2 students of Sekolah Agama Menengah Lestari, Subang Jaya. The data instrument for this paper first by using the video recording of the researcher. From this video recording, the researcher could find that students gave suggestions of applications that they want to use. So during that time, the teacher wanted them to record their meeting for this online group activity. Therefore, the students suggested for the teachers to allow them to record using Google Meet, and the teacher agreed with that suggestion. Second, students actively asked questions in the chat box. There were a lot of questions about the group work that were asked during the class in the chat box. And then third, students formed their groups faster than the expected time. During that time, the teacher gave 1 hour for them to form their groups. However, they managed to form the groups for only 30 minutes. Another data instrument that we used is reflection journals of the researcher. From the reflection journals, we could see that students asked questions a lot about the group activity. Second, students gave suggestions. Third, students gave drafts of their work to the teacher via WhatsApp Messenger. They asked for the teacher to analyze or evaluate their drafts and give suggestions on what to improve before they submit their full final work. Fourth, students' attendance increased than the previous class, which is a very good thing. And then lastly, students successfully submitted their works in the Google Classroom. And the third data instrument is observation checklist. From this checklist, the researcher list the actions that were happening in the class. And for this research, they could find that a lot of positive elements were given from the students. The group activities actually made students really participate more in the classroom. The implications that we got from this research is, first, teachers must give detailed explanation and a sample of the group activities. This is to make sure that students do not feel burdened about the group work, and also for the students to see what they should come up with. Second, fair treatments should be given to the students. So the students must feel good in their group. They should not be left with dysfunction group members. And third, teacher must alert of students' problems during the group activities. In case there are students in the group that do not give cooperation to finish them, teachers must take actions towards the students. And in conclusion, students will want to participate more in the class when teachers know how to conduct the class effectively. And then second, group activities in an online classroom is not impossible as long as the teacher cares for the student's ability in using technology with detailed instruction. That is all from me. Thank you.
Next presenter, Arifa Binti Mohammed Issa, with her final year project titled The Use of Teachers' Feedback in ESL Classroom Towards Secondary School Students in Bangkalan Hulu District.
Assalamualaikum and good day everyone. My name is Arifa Binti Mohammed Issa. My message number is D2018108263. In this video, I'm going to present my final year project entitled The Use of Teachers' Feedback in ESL Classroom Towards Secondary School Students in Bangkalan Hulu District. Okay, let's begin with the problem statement. So the problem is teachers normally are not aware of how students view the feedback that is given to them. In the aim of making the feedback more meaningful towards the students, it is important for us teachers to know what are their views and the benefit that they get from the feedback. Also, teachers intend the students to view their learning meaningfully through feedback so that they can work towards their goal. Okay, moving on to the research objectives and research questions. Okay, so the first objective is to identify the types of teachers' feedback given in ESL classroom. Next objective is to study the roles of teachers' feedback towards the students and to find out the students' perception towards the effectiveness of teachers' feedback. Okay, and then for the research questions, what are the types of teachers' feedback provided to the students in ESL classroom? How effective is the teachers' feedback towards the students? And how do students perceive the effectiveness of teachers' feedback? Okay, and then for the methodology, the first methodology is survey questionnaire. Okay, the questionnaire contains two sections that address the research objectives. Okay, for section A, it contains 6 items, which is the types of feedback, and for section B, it contains 12 items, which is the roles of teachers' feedback. And 35 students have responded to this questionnaire. Okay, next I use semi-structured interview. Okay, 2 lower form students from the same school are interviewed, and the interviews were done in 2 different days. Okay, the first interview was done in face-to-face interaction, and the second interview was done through WhatsApp. Okay, for the results and the findings. Okay, for the first data that I got is types of feedback received by the students. Okay, most students received corrective feedback and motivational feedback. Positive feedback is the second feedback most received, and negative feedback becomes the least feedback that is received by the students. And then the second data is the roles or effectiveness of teachers' feedback perceived by the students. Okay, so based on the findings, most students strongly agree that teachers' feedback help them to identify their strengths and weaknesses in learning English. They also agree that teachers' feedback makes them confident to use English during English class. However, they strongly disagree that teachers' feedback allows them to evaluate their ability in learning English. And lastly, most of them also disagree that teachers' feedback allows them to expect their achievement in doing the next task. Okay, to conclude my study, students are familiar with teachers' feedback and they take notice when they receive the feedback from the teachers. And students have positive attitude and perception towards teachers' feedback. Other than that, students indicate that they gain benefit from teachers' feedback. And last but not least, teachers providing feedback is an important practice that can help encourage language learning. Okay, so that's all from my presentation. Thank you for listening.
Next presenter, Rachel Anak Razak, with her final year project titled Integration of Game-Based Learning to Enhance Participation Among Lower Secondary Students in ESL Classroom.
Good day, everyone. My name is Rachel Razak with metric number Li 2018-1084-641. So today I am going to present my final year project entitled Integration of Game-Based Learning to Enhance Participation Among Secondary School Students in ESL Classrooms. Now, the reason why I chose this title is because during my practicum at one of the secondary schools in Sarawak, I found that the students were passive in the classroom. It is challenging for students to respond to teachers' questions except when teachers calling out their names. Therefore, I decided to study the integration of the game-based learning approach into lessons to find out the possible relationship between game-based learning and student participation in ESL classrooms by establishing game-based learning as a teaching method in encouraging them to participate actively during the English lesson. Now the research questions of this study are: what are the effects of using game-based learning approach on student motivation, and how are students' engagement towards game-based learning approach? Next, there are a lot of literature reviews used to better aid in understanding this study, but the one that I would like to highlight is by Popescu, where that teachers should use games that have already been practiced, and the effectiveness is proved so that they may have a good understanding of the games and be able to integrate them into the overall educational framework. In this case, the games such as board games or even digital game-based such as Kahoot. For that reason, teachers should focus on game-based learning activities so that pre-service teachers might be aware of game-based learning and its use as a teaching method. With the help of game-based learning, teachers are able to establish a class atmosphere conducive for doing collaborative work, participating in class activities, and solving problems, which will in turn help them improve their teaching methods. The research design for this particular study is survey research, where the respondents selected are based on their experience and familiarity of using game-based learning approach in a classroom. Research instruments like observation, questionnaires, and interview were used to gather the data. As for the findings, by using observation of the teachers' reflections, it can be found that teachers have a great feedback on using the game-based teaching approach, and it helped to manage the classroom, and students seems to have been more active in class activity rather than the traditional learning approach. Next, through the questionnaire, it can be seen that from the data that the students have positive feedback of using the game-based learning, as it is a great approach to enhance their engagement. Lastly, interview done with the students show most common feedback is that game-based learning approach increased their interest to learn English, and it is also effective as the students pay more attention and they are eager to participate in the class activity. And this research has indicated that by integrating game-based learning into the lesson can improve students' participation in ESL classroom. In conclusion, I gained a lot of experience and knowledge while doing this research. I could not deny that game-based learning can be a positive approach because it is effective and it can make a difference to the students. And I do believe as a future teacher, game-based learning is important because it is not merely an approach to deliver the lesson to the students. So that is all from me. Thank you.
Next presenter, Glory Christopher, with her final year project titled Mindful Learning, Practicing Mindfulness in ESL Classroom to Enhance Students' Attention Skills.
Before I begin, let's play a little name game. Look around you and name 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can see, and finally 1 sensation that you can feel right now. See, what we just did is actually a simple mindfulness activity we can practice in ESL classroom. Good day everyone, my name is Glory Christopher. My metric number is D201810826673. My research paper is on mindful learning, practicing mindfulness in ESL classroom to enhance students' attention skills. Students losing interest or motivation in the middle of the lesson is not an uncommon issue faced by teachers. Past researchers discovered that students focus on a single activity from 10 to 18 minutes, between 7 and 8 minutes, or even as low as 2 minutes. Research also showed that while students commonly lose focus and then refocus in under a minute, their ability to maintain attention diminishes throughout the class period. This is more apparent in today's learning approach as we adopted online learning. Students enter the classroom with divided attention since we, the teachers, are not able to monitor their learning environment, which might not be conducive for learning activities. Okay, now the question is, what is mindful learning? Mindfulness is a practice that develops attention and awareness. It is crucial for learners to be consciously aware of their mental states and the changes in them while they are in class. This will encourage students to identify their motivation to learn and at the same time build interest to participate in the class activities. Additionally, students tend to focus more effectively when teachers integrate student-centered pedagogies. Thus, the purpose of this study is to find out whether that student-centered pedagogies we're looking for is mindful learning. Moving on to the objectives of the research, number 1 is to identify the benefits of mindfulness strategies in an online ESL classroom. Number 2 is to determine whether implementing mindfulness strategies in an online ESL classroom can enhance students' attention skills. Here are some key points that I would like to highlight from my literature review. Mindfulness practice has been found to improve adaptability in stressful situations, attention regulation, and focus. However, some studies also suggested that even though mindful learning helps with lowering students' learning anxiety, there are weak indications of mindfulness contribution in improving students' attention skills. This research has a mix of qualitative research and library studies where English teachers who have or had experience implementing mindfulness strategies into their classes were interviewed, and past studies on mindful learning were analyzed in an in-depth manner. Now, moving on to the findings of this research. This research suggested that mindful learning can be a beneficial pedagogical approach to be implemented in ESL classroom. Though an accurate research finding on whether it can help students to improve their attention skills is yet to be resolved, according to the teachers I interviewed, one cannot deny how mindful learning helps in improving students' learning experience, be it physical, online, and during a global pandemic. In conclusion, integrating mindfulness into ESL classroom is an incredible tool in attaining a holistic educational approach as it seeks to target students' well-being first before academic performance. I believe this approach is significant, especially in times such as this, where both educators and students are very vulnerable to the abrupt transition from physical to online classes. Though the concrete and permanent integration of mindfulness into education is likely to be a slow process, I am confident that the benefits it offers to the education community will supersede any initial doubt or uncertainty that those inexperienced with mindfulness may have, as it did with myself before diving into this research. That is all from me. I hope all of you learned something. Thank you very much.
Our final presenter, Afika Binti Mohammed Johari, with her final year project titled The Implementation of Various Types of Assessment in Online Learning Among ESL Teachers.
Assalamualaikum and good day everybody. My name is Afika Binti Mohammed Johari, and the title of my final year project is The Implementation of Various Types of Assessment by ESL Teachers During Online Learning. The purpose of this study is to analyze the types of assessment used in online learning and what are the specific reasons of using the particular types of assessment during online learning by primary and secondary ESL teachers. The research problem that I found in my study are the lack of teachers' preparation in conducting online assessments and limitations to assess students effectively during online learning due to specific reasons such as gadgets and internet connection. Online learning is a new teaching and learning method for both parties, students and school teachers. Teachers are lack of experience and preparation, while students not really committed participate in the lessons. There are two research objectives in my study, which are: first, to identify the three types of assessment used by primary and secondary ESL teachers during online learning, and second, to study the reasons of using the particular types of assessment by primary and secondary ESL teachers during online learning. Same goes to my research questions, which are: 1. What are the three types of assessment used by primary and secondary ESL teachers in online learning? And 2. What are the reasons of using particular types of assessment by primary and secondary ESL teachers during online learning? For the literature review, based on the articles, I can conclude that there are three types of assessment that are mainly used by school teachers in assessing students, namely diagnostic assessment, formative assessment, and lastly we have summative assessment. From my reading, the articles stress that diagnostic assessment is used to inform teachers of students' level and abilities. It is conducted before learning takes place, while formative assessment will help teachers to get or give feedback immediately. This assessment is conducted during the lessons. And lastly, we have a summative assessment. Summative assessment is used to measure whether students have mastered the topic or subject successfully or not. Basically, summative assessment is conducted at the end of unit or course. Now, let's move to the methodology. For the methodology, I use qualitative and quantitative research for the data collection. There are two instruments used in my study, which are questionnaire and semi-structured interview. For the questionnaire, the questionnaire is given only for primary and secondary ESL teachers who have experience in conducting online learning during the pandemic. And for the semi-structured interview, I have interviewed 6 English teachers, which are 4 of them are primary school teachers and the rest 2 of them are secondary school teachers by using WhatsApp chat and WhatsApp voice note. Now moving on to the findings. Okay, for the findings, primary and secondary ESL teachers use formative assessment to assess students during online learning. This is because in online learning, teachers have limited time to deliver the lessons. The diagnostic assessment conducted before starting the learning will make the learning time shorter, while the summative assessment requires more time because the assessment has a large number of questions. Therefore, formative assessment is the best type of assessment to use during online learning because teachers can monitor student progress and get immediate feedback. As a conclusion to my study, assessment is important to be conducted by teachers either in a face-to-face classroom or online learning. It is important to assess and review student progress from time to time. In the context of online learning, from the assessment conducted, teachers can have a better quality of teaching and learning as teachers can improve their teaching strategies and monitor student progress. That's it for my presentation. Thank you for listening.
We hope you have gained knowledge from our presenters. Please do join us for the closing ceremony that will begin in a few minutes. Thank you and see you there.